Luis.
Nice to see you.
Thank you so much, Louis. Thank you for joining us. And Louis, I want to start right with you, actually, having kind of heard what this presentation and a real strong view into how Nissan's supply chain management is changing and digitalizing. What are some of its resonance for you? How does this compare, contrast to the work and industries that you're doing at Google Cloud?
No, appreciate that, Chris. Look, I think that I'll point out 3 things that I never hear customers talk about that Gerardo talked about, which is critical, okay? So it was an incredible presentation. First thing is just having a roadmap. If you look at some recent data from Manufacturing Leadership Council, they said about 26% of the respondents that they surveyed had a roadmap. The rest are doing AI and ML, doing a bunch of stuff without a roadmap, which is kind of crazy, but that's the way it is, because manufacturing supply chain people, we like to do stuff. We're reactive. Let's do, and then we'll figure out the roadmap later, right? The second thing that I think is critical, and I rarely see this, is that Gerardo and his team are thinking about enablement also. This is about resources. And you're not going to have a bunch of people who are data and AI experts out there knocking at your door. You need to build those skills from the people with the people you have already. So that's the second thing. And last but not least, and if you hear I've seen the recent news from CDK Global, right? Cybersecurity. One of my main talking points with customers is that if you are not thinking about all these things with cybersecurity in the forefront, you're going to be in trouble. It's an extremely vulnerable area on the OT side, not only on the OT side, but also things like you're writing code, right? How do you make sure there's not a backdoor entered into your code that you now are going to use to run an AI model for your supply chain? So it's a huge area of risk, and we have to get better at that. So just those 3 things alone, as I was listening to Gerardo, indicated to me that, wow, this is a really well thought out plan, and I'm looking forward to kind of understanding more throughout the couple of days here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Louis, when you work with manufacturers and perhaps to support their roadmap or encourage their roadmap, I mean, what are some of the key pillars from a systems architecture, even organizational point of view, to achieve what Gerardo and Nissan are trying to achieve in terms of being more resilient and predictive?
Yeah, I think from the system standpoint, look, the reality is that everyone's got a wide range of systems out there, and the idea that somehow we're going to start with a brand new, fresh system is not going to happen. The budgets aren't there, and the work is just too much. So you have to figure out a strategy that says, I'm going to use the systems I have as I move to replacing those systems in their normal life cycle, right? And so the focus is on getting the data where it needs to be and feeding that data to those systems as needed, right? So that's kind of the first thing on the system side. I think the other thing I would look at is that, if possible, avoid copying, replicating data, right? Leave the data where it's at, give the system access to it. Maybe you have a central repository, but really avoid copying data overall. That's a big area of challenge. And I think the third thing I would say on the system side is really understanding, when it's all said and done, that you have to apply AI as a platform. The example I give customers is this. Imagine you're running a plant, right? And you have 50 different AI and ML models running in that plant, which is not going to be unrealistic, frankly, right? Predictive maintenance, quality anomaly detection, things like that. It's going to be hard enough to manage all those models. Think about trying to manage those models if they're running on 17 different platforms of AI technology. These platforms are going to evolve at a different rate. You need to make sure you have a single platform. The use cases will vary, but the platform itself needs to be a single platform, in my opinion.
Those are some great points. Gerardo, you showed on your slide some of the important work on data centralization and also work process flow, and of course, updating those systems that you started from sort of the core to the more and more complex. Clearly, that's a journey, as Louis said, and in honor of International Barcode Day, as we said, it's probably, we're still going to be celebrating some of these core systems 50 years from now, perhaps too. But where would you put yourself on this journey now? I mean, how much progress have you made? What's the next key steps?
Thank you. I think, as I said, the group was created 2018. Mm-hmm. It's already a very strong foundation. I think we are in the beginning of the phase of bringing solutions that really demonstrate the effectiveness and the resilience. I didn't make other examples, but let me give you one comment. We recently launched in Texas, in Laredo, a new factory that is being prepared to enable the compliance with the USMCA, with the labor value content. And that factory launched with a very, very record time to be prepared. It's fully operating now. Well, this factory is going to become our first digital factory for all the packaging that we do with all our suppliers. The teams have prepared the solution already. The solution is available. But we want to bring this mindset about digital solutions are being created. Now it's time. We are in this phase of the journey, going back to the question, to demonstrate that the solution works, brings efficiency, helps suppliers, help the people that is involved within all the steps on the, I'm making the example of the packaging, right? Which I know we all suffer, yeah? But within this, I do believe we are in this journey, we are in the phase of starting to bring solutions that matters to the people in the normal SEM. That's number one. There is a lot of ideas and a lot of enthusiasm for people in other departments. As I made example of the drones, which are also creating, or another big project in Canton for automation, storage, retrieving systems as well. That is also bringing a lot of, okay, what is the next? What is the next? But definitively, I think we still have a huge potential in this journey because, just one example, when we contract with one supplier, the commitment to deliver parts to a new Nissan model, in the moment of the contract, supplier is immediately responsible to deliver 24 different documents that prepares the supply of the part. How they will build the factory, where they will buy the tooling, the equipment, how they will train the people, blah, blah, blah. 24. Well, the document of the tier 1 is one of them. The one that the tier N that I shared on the PwC, we call the CSCC, is already digitalized. The packaging design sheet is other document of this list of 24. So please imagine the power that comes behind the remaining 22, right? The remaining 22, imagine that all our collaboration with supplier comes through all of this digitalization, and we can know by heart if any issue, if any, I think it's, again, we are just scratching the surface at this time, but extraordinary, great progress the teams are doing, I believe.
Absolutely. Incredible. Louis, Google Cloud and Kyndryl are working with manufacturers and OEMs to transition to these cloud-based and data-centric architecture. So what would you identify? What are some of the big challenges in that transition that companies here need to keep in mind, and perhaps thinking about it, how it could cascade to operations and logistics as well?
I think there's a couple of areas. I think, and Gerardo kind of touched on this. Look, we've got a bunch of data out there, right? The challenge is it's uncontextualized in most cases, and it's in different systems, right? So that's really the big hurdle to get past, right? And it's such a big hurdle that people say, I can't even start until I have this Uber system that has all this data, right? And so it's not going to happen. So you have to kind of work through that process, right? That's the first challenge. I think that the next challenge is that people, as soon as you hear cloud, you think all or nothing. And the reality is, I can tell you right now, 100% guaranteed, supply chain and manufacturing will always be hybrid, meaning there'll always be an edge component and a cloud component. There's no way around that, okay? From a speed standpoint, from a bandwidth standpoint, you're running models on lines that are moving very quickly. There's no way you can do it all in the cloud. And that's fine. You have to think of it that way. It's got to be a hybrid approach. And I think the last thing that I think people are really kind of struggling with is just the talent level, right? I mean, manufacturers today just can't even hire the people they have for the normal operator jobs, right? I look at these numbers every month in the U.S. We have about 600,000 open manufacturing jobs in the U.S., and we fill about 20,000 a month. That's been going on for like 7 years. Wow. And this is the scary part. That's scary enough. In 2030, you're going to have 2 million unfilled open manufacturing jobs in the U.S. So you have to think about, how do I do this using the people I have, not the people I have to hire? And that's why I commented on Gerardo's approach of building that talent. You have to do that, right? And so you're hiring people who have had a cell phone in their hands since they were 8 years old. My 16-year-old can attest to that, right? And so and if you take that away from them, they go, they lose their mind. You take it away for a day, right? So given that, do you want to hire that person, tell them, by the way, to communicate to the next shift, you write on this whiteboard, right? or you basically use Excel spreadsheet to make these decisions, right? You have to think about these things. So those are the biggest challenges: talent, the legacy systems, and the inability to really kind of drive the concept of what does the cloud mean to you. It's not all or nothing. There's a hybrid approach. There's spoken hub, things like that.
Yeah. And you talk about it very well and elegantly from a systems point of view, and Gerardo, that kind of echoes your own sort of go-to-Gemba approach with digitalization as well, even physically, right? As you said, that the teams should validate, physically, and perhaps there's edge tools that can also support that at a way. But I think that's an important way to think about this industry, because at the end of the day, there are 1,600 suppliers and 600 parts, so we still need to manage with all of that. I'll open it up to the floor in a moment, but I just wanted to come back on the AI topic, and just again around that sort of roadmap point, because Gerardo, you talked about this could perhaps help you in the tier N, for example. So what do you see at Nissan in that roadmap for supply chain management? What are the key areas for AI that you're looking to apply?
Thank you. Several areas. Let me start with the first one. I mentioned that we are partnering with one company who's already, after AI implementation, they are being able to identify, filter, categorize, and provide us with a very concrete and customized alerts on what could be following our Nissan Plus suppliers' footprints. And now that we are advancing in all of this collection of tier 2s and tier 3s, as soon as this is fully available, I think we can immediately identify if any external threat comes to us thanks to the AI. As I said during the presentation, we are also exploring bringing all of these tools to create more predictive methodologies. There is people working in inventories optimization. How can we find out, following the seasonality of the weather, following the current operations in our production plants in the line? And that's why I keep saying that let's please keep one hand on physically understanding what's going on and the other one in the digitalization. Because yes, all of these tools are now, we are under the developing phase of how to best use the AI. But I also want to say, as I mentioned, that in this activity with partnering with, example, the universities, how to build the system that can give us immediate alerts when a supplier is late on shipping parts. Seems like a very basic question, but how can we make this digital, and then through the AI and the machine learning, how can we predict that that supplier that historically has been up and down will again come with a problem that we better check with proper anticipation? And many more. There is a lot of cost reduction, optimizations, opportunities. As I said, we are in a very good momentum in our journey, but still with a lot of opportunities going forward.
Absolutely. And Luis, from Google Cloud point of view, I mean, again, you have access to lots of data that many companies wouldn't have necessarily. Are there examples in the automotive space or manufacturing logistics where you're developing this further? I mean, Gerardo talked a lot about risk sensing. This seems one really important area.
No, I think it's an interesting area, and I think that the first thing I would say is that right off the bat, if you think about sales and operations planning, whatever company you're in, it is a process that's still driven by a lot of statistical algorithms. Best case, worst case, rolling averages, and it creates a lot of challenges, right? So the first thing is we're thinking that, hey, regardless of what application you use, whether you use some of our applications from our great partners like O9 or Connexus or Anaplan, those applications do their thing and they're important. Think about how can I get that initial forecast better, more accurate, right? And I think the answer is clearly AI. We've shown that we can beat very quickly if your statistical-based models off the bat. And so that's parity right there, right? The way you get better is that now you're able to add other data sources that you couldn't add in those models, right? Things like economic data, things like climate data, things like how backed up is the LA port or the Baltimore port. Things like, for example, do we have the opportunity to basically drive better sales through other activities, right? Search trends, things like that. So I think that's the first area of really high focus for us. A lot of work around demand sensing, demand planning. We bring to the table not only our technology, but also the data sets that no one else in the world has, right, which is key. I think the other area of focus is, and Gerardo mentioned this a couple of times, I call it next part at risk, which is a function of visibility, right? We'd love to be able to say, I can see everything that's happening to tier 3 or tier 4, tier 5. That's not going to happen. And I'm not going to be able to say, I know I can see visibility to certain levels to know when things are at risk. But you have to infer that risk somehow, right? And you have the data to get this. And very experienced planners and buyers, supply chain operators, understand how to use that and intuitively say, oh, this is something's not right here. These guys have never been late in the last 36 months. All of a sudden, last 2 months in a row, they've been late by 1 or 2 days. I want to make the adjustments. So the data is there. So understanding how to basically look at all that information, infer some knowledge of what the next part at risk is, and give yourself more runway. Gerardo used the example of the sand clock, basically. Same thing, it's just a longer run to give you more insights. And I think the last area that I think is very important and an interesting area for us is that, look, the knowledge gap I mentioned already, Gerardo's addressing with the kind of enablement work he's doing. Gen AI should be thought of as a knowledge management tool by you, right? So you've got a bunch of unstructured data in the heads of these people who have been working there for 25, 30 years, right? They don't need to be data scientists to help you build better models, right? Use Gen AI for any decision point. Think of a process, say procure to pay. Find the decision points. Can I build a Gen AI model that lets me help ask questions using natural language of those criteria, right? Use the experienced people to tell the model, yes, this is a good answer, or no, that's a terrible answer. Here's another alternative. So you're taking their knowledge and actually building it into the model by having them interact with it with a yes or no. And think of these things as journeys, right? It's amazing to me how customers I talk to who are running 70% accuracy in MAPE and then say, oh, it's only 85% accurate, I want to use that. Wait a minute, you're doing 70% accuracy in MAPE here, but you're saying 85% is not good enough. 85% is good enough, just build it over time.
That's a really interesting point and application for Gen AI, and I think we'll come back to that. But I did want to give the audience some opportunity. If there's any questions, comments, or areas you'd like to pose to either of our panelists, we do have microphones, and you just... do we have a hand there? Sorry, I'm also slightly blinded by the light. Yes, I see. Dan, you get to him first. You say your name and company.
Sure. Hi, Gerardo. This is Frank Grusa with ICL. I really like what you're doing with the Analytics Academy. Is this something open to your entire organization or just a supply chain organization? And how has the reception been? I think that's a great plan to get more people involved into data analytics.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Frank, and nice to see you again. Well, it has been prepared originally for all the supply chain staffs. It's been already promoted by our teams over the last several years. We started in USA. As I said, one of the missions that Jorge has in Mexico is that we want to bring this to all our colleagues in Mexico. But then from what we are learning and what the people is now starting to use, we know that other departments are already somehow doing type of similars, but where is where the great collaboration opportunity comes. Let me give you just one example. The example on the coordination for the adoption of a design note. In the normal or traditional manufacturing companies, a design note that for us is an instruction by engineering to change the specification of the part. It's been done traditionally with multiple meetings in person. People from different departments have to come to the meeting room to check the content of the engineering change. What is the supplier? What is the part? Do we need to test, yes or not? Are we need to change the packaging or not? Do we need to train the operator with a new, blah, blah, blah. There is a lot of steps, right? Well, in collaboration not only with supply chain, but with supply chain and the parts quality engineering teams, manufacturing, of course, the material handling, logistics, purchasing, design. The teams already developed and also already launched, I didn't mention, the DNDB, Design Note Database Management System, that as soon as an instruction from engineering it's released from the engineering system, we use G2B as the operation for all the design instructions to the manufacturing locations and all the other departments. As soon as this is released, the system automatically identifies which commodity is this. Is this a chassis part, or is this an electronic part, or is this an engine part? And then it's already set up with a group of people that it's embedded within that type of process and immediately sending communications, alerts, hey, you are engaged or you are involved into the adoption of this design change that will have to be tested, blah, blah, blah. And believe me, within this collaboration, Frank, with many other departments in the utilization of the digital tools that are being created, there is a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of people wanted to participate because we all start to see that is bringing too much more, as I said, efficiency and recycling, and when we collaborate among many other departments. So it is initially created with supply chain, but we are more than happy to share with other departments as it is really, I believe, one of the new ways to communicate and work within our functions.
I think that integration of information and is a really, Louis, it sounds to me like a step towards a real kind of digital twin as well, right? Because if you can envision that what engineering and design does can, well, the first case be alert, but eventually can visualize and connect across, then this to me always seems like a real important aspect for the supply chain. Like if
absolutely. I think that what I tell customers, think of digital twin as a North Star, not necessarily a use case, right? Even though you're getting bombarded with people that have a digital twin, is it the part, the product, the process, the people, or the plant? You don't know, right? So think of the digital twin as a North Star. You get there over time by enabling certain use cases. Each of them on their own have value, right? And you enable 1, 2, 3, so forth, so on. Before you know it, you have a digital twin. But you're not making this big project that says I have to copy all this data over to know exactly what's happening in the plant. By the way, have you guys known a plant that stayed static and nothing changes? Because I haven't seen one yet, right? So you're constantly fighting your tail there, right? So think of it as a North Star, build use case by use case, and drive to it. The digital twin is a concept. You're always going to be evolving on it, and that's where you get value from it.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Dan, if you see it. Oh, we have a question right here. You come here first and then go, just because I saw it first. And I'm the moderator and I get to choose, sorry. But we will come back afterwards.
Hi, my name is Ishwar Basal. I'm a data scientist in Nissan supply chain. So my question to Louis is, there are a lot of availability of the data sources in Google Cloud, like weather data, economic, financial, and so on. So what are the collaboration that Google Cloud is doing in contribution towards the supply disruption or current demand of supply chain visibility? So is there any specific areas that Google Cloud is working to help the supply chain visibility in specific?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, the way we look at this is that we're building, selfishly, it's going to sound weird, we're building AI tools for us. Right? We're building AI tools. We got 3,000 people building AI tools because of maps, search, YouTube, all those things. So that's what we're focusing on now. Google Cloud's a way for us to say, you know what, these AI tools can be used by our customers, and you can take advantage of the fact that we have 3,000 people thinking about this night and day and build these new tools. Now, what we're trying to do on the supply chain manufacturing side is, hey, given those tools, what other capabilities we have to enable to allow supply chain and manufacturing operators to use those tools effectively, right? So think of it as almost like tooling, right? We're not going to build specific AI capabilities for manufacturing supply chain. We're going to allow you to use the things we're building for ourselves and for other customers, frankly, in a much more effective way. So I think there's 3 areas that we're really focusing on. I think that all of this visibility is really contingent on data sharing between multiple parties. And we've been trying to do this for 50 years, right? And data sharing has always led, there's a lot of examples out there, data sharing led to someone using that data against the supplier in some certain cases, right? So we've got to figure out how to share data in an effective way. So we're working on things like data analytics hubs that allow you to share data without replicating, allow you to monetize certain data sets if you want to, things like that. That's the first thing. The second thing is we're trying to figure out how do we take the vast set of data sets that we have, whether it be climate engine data, trends I mentioned already, other data sets, and make them available at a broader scale for people. So we think those are significant parts of the model. I think the third area we're trying to look at is the large language models themselves. Large language models are going to have a play in supply chain management. We already have in private preview, it's not available public yet, we've got a time series-based large language model for forecasting. So literally a large language model, you can say, what do you think the price of steel is going to be in October of 2025? and get back an answer, right? And testing is showing that we're actually we're not beating it yet. We're very close to beating a REMA and exponential smoothing, right? So that's a revolutionary thing. So the large language model is really about choice. We have a model garden that gives you all the kinds of choices, whether you want to use Claude or you want to use our Gemini. I think ChatGPT will be in there eventually. Frankly, that's just you can see how accurate I am in a couple of years, but I think ChatGPT will in there. And by the way, the T in ChatGPT stands for transformer. That's a technology that we invented in 2017. Just as a side, ad lib for Google there. So those are kind of three areas. So I think data is going to be, we're going to stay in our sweet spot, data. And I think as we understand and learn more of other use cases, I think there will be opportunity to get community data established and then make that available to other people. Because on the logistics side especially, this is going to be a countrywide problem. The inability to get just basic truck drivers to move product. And there's no way it's going to be solved by individual companies. It's going to be solved by communities working together to figure out how do we basically manage the capacity we have to meet with the demand that we have as an organization.
Thank you so much. So I think we can take so I promised I'd come back.
Hello, I'm Robert Wainio with CHEP Automotive. Thank you so much for your presentation. My question's about cybersecurity. You mentioned the slogan, Stronger Together, in which you guys are working directly with your suppliers to enhance their cybersecurity. And my question is, although you said they've been mostly receptive to this assistance, what are some of the roadblocks you've been getting from suppliers? Is it perhaps a lack of infrastructure to implement some of your systems, or maybe a large learning curve about the importance of cybersecurity? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very interesting question. In summary, the major issues we are seeing as a common issues within all the suppliers are, number one, there is lack of policies, procedures, or even people responsibilities on who protects cybersecurity. In several companies, there is one guy in IT that his role is all of this IT plus cybersecurity. But when you talk to him, well, it's not me. Maybe it's Luis. And I was told, but that is like a common concern. Second common concern is that when you go and ask, okay, who are your suppliers? Oh, this, and this. How you check they are protected? How you check your communication with your suppliers are somehow protected? Do you know if they are exposed? In other words, there is a huge opportunity on how each supplier manages their own third-party risk. Yeah, and that is one of the main feedback we are getting from the executives. In the program, we agreed that at the end of the survey, the supplier has, of course, time to review, check, validate, yes or not. Honestly speaking, I am not looking for a score. I'm looking for the reaction on the executive team about, okay, this is serious. We have to make a totally new set of actions, as example, with policies, procedures, how they engage their TRNs. There is a lot of companies that also have like the softwares and all of the firewalls, etc. 2, 3, or 4 versions old, It's like when we have seen those suppliers and we are in front of the executives and I see a lot of red color in that special report, I'm just telling them, hey, brother, it's just about a matter of time. If it is your house and you have a valuable belongings inside your house, sorry, the door is open, the garage is open, the rear window is open, the roof is open, the fire chimney is open. People can get in you just by crossing in front of your house. And that is what is really making the participants now too much more aware, too much more like reacting. There are many big news in the market almost every day, right? But believe me, we are also discovering that many of our automotive suppliers do not follow those big news every day, to be honest. So they know their operation and they are working and delivering. But when you come with these facts as the recent events, then people opens their eyes, and I think that's why we are getting a lot of momentum, a lot of engagement, and Even people asking, hey, could you recommend me the partner that you deal with because we believe they can help us? Yeah, do it. So it's been very, very positively received. And again, our advice is do your best to protect yourself and protect yours. Because it's so severe.
One comment on cybersecurity is that don't let cybersecurity be a wall against innovation in the plant and supply chain, right?
Very good.
Okay.
comment.
Oh, you can't open up a port. We're not going to let you open up a port. You can't do this. You can't do that. Meanwhile, you got direct access to machines from third-party vendors to do programming that you don't have any control over, right? So make sure that you challenge people. That cannot be an impediment to innovation. And the last thing I would say is that you should have an incident response retainer for every facility you have under your control, because when it happens, minutes matter. And the last thing you want to do is trying to figure out who we're going to call now, right? Have an incident response retainer for every plant you have, every facility you have, so you can react to it very quickly.
Fantastic. Well, as you can see, we have so much to cover, and we could carry on, but I think we're going to take a short break in a moment. But before I tell you about what's going to happen next, I really want to thank both of our speakers, Gerardo for the fantastic keynote and all that insight, and Luis for really coming in and going deeper with us and sharing more from Google's. Really appreciate it. It's a fantastic way. Couldn't ask for a better way to start the event. So thank you so much for both of you. Thank you.